Shun issues that stands against patriotic obligation to work for the interest of Nigerians. President Buhari urges new ministers.
I am convinced that we can build a buoyant economy that supports inclusive growth and creates broad-based prosperity for every Nigerian.
Presidential election petition court reserves judgment.
Nigeria marks 3 years of polio virus-free status.
So what it really means is in the last 3 years, not a single child has been reported with paralysis due to wild polio virus.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the new federal cabinet of President Muhammadu Buhari's second term. The swearing-in of new ministers by President Muhammadu Buhari and the subsequent assignment of portfolio on Wednesday, the 21st of August, kicks off the second term of the APC Next Level government in full swing. Claire?
Jume, you're quite correct. Of course, it was a moment that Nigerians, had anxiously waited for so long. And like, someone said, the expectations, kept reverberating. Of course,
we kept seeing fake portfolio assigned to ministers on social media.
I didn't even consider that because, yes, I wait until the authentic list, you understand, comes out. But of course, the ministers are very integral to the success of the aspirations and delivery of good governance and dividends of democracy that this administration, that's the APC-led administration, has promised Nigerians. So the expectations, as we said, are quite high.
Quite high, exactly. And, interestingly, Claire, the president in the second term increased the number of ministers to 43 from the initial 36 in his first tenure. And he had explained that the expansion is to ensure effective delivery.
Effective delivery indeed. And of course, during the orientation, it was also made known to them that, look, the ministers should work, to deliver the policies of government in line with the party's manifesto.
Yes.
That was very critical. And if we look at the portfolios, that have been assigned to the ministers, there are indications that President Muhammadu Buhari, of course, not indications now, he retained his position as the Minister of Petroleum, of course, and just as many of the returnee ministers retained their previous portfolios. We're looking at the likes of Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed. Of course, Suleiman Adamu is also back to water resources. Adamu is back to education. Rotimi Chibika Mechi, Ogbonnaya Ono, and not forgetting the Labour Minister, Dr. Chris Ngige, all of them back to their former portfolios.
Claire, when we got the list of the ministers, a lot of people were saying, no, this is good, this is one of the best we have, and commendable actually. And the president also unbundled some of these ministries. For instance, power has now been separated from the former Ministry of Power Works and Housing. Apart from the portfolio, we are familiar with additional ones that have been created. For example, we now have the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. I think that is apt. That is Saidia Umar Farouk. The most important thing is that a new federal cabinet has been sworn in and members are expected to hit the ground running.
Okay, hitting the ground running. It's indeed time for action, not words. Not just action also, but those that will translate to having a Nigeria, and this is very critical, where, for instance, the public health system works for all, where corruption, of course, is, dealt with, tackled, where we have streets are lit up, streets are safe, people are empowered, and houses, like we said, are lit, factories working, schools and citadels of learning are, you understand, exemplary in terms of infrastructure. And Jume, if you recall, President Muhammadu Buhari, of course, stated, as I said earlier on in his address, to wind up the 2-day retreat that preceded the swearing of the ministers, the majority of Nigerians are poor. So that is very critical. He said, look, your job basically is ultimately to get millions of Nigerians out of extreme poverty.
100 million actually, and I think they're on the path of achieving that in the next 4 years. Nigerians will be watching, and you remember the president said there will be a scorecard.
Definitely.
Yes.
They now have a kind of monitoring and evaluation, template, for the ministers. But it also has been there, and as someone said sometime, Nigerians would also be on the watch, and to hold, their leaders accountable. So,
exactly. And what is the starting point that should give Nigerians the assurance that it is indeed the dawn of a new era with the next level agenda? What should be done differently, drawing from the failures and successes of the president's first term? How do the new ministers intend to consolidate on past successes of the administration and break new ground? What should Nigerians be expecting from the new cabinet, aside from some specifics that have been reeled out by the president at the various events like we discussed, the scorecard and everything? Is it a case of square pegs and square holes and round pegs and round holes, or round pegs and square holes, and vice versa? Whichever has played out, one thing that cannot be ruled out is the issue of competence and comparative advantage. These are some of our talking points on Good Morning Nigeria today. I am Jumma Yusuf. Thank you for joining us on the program.
And I'm Claire Delabu Abdul-Razak. It's a pleasure to have you. And I'm talking to each and every one of you. I know you, and I know this program is your morning tonic every day. So thank you for joining us once again. It's Thursday's edition. And we're broadcasting live on the network service, Africa's largest TV network, the NTA. A complimentary part of the program will, of course, come your way. And we're looking at newspaper review. I'll be hitting you with the trending news, and we all have an idea. And we also have others like foreign news. There will be sports. But right now, let's take the news. And our colleague, Musba Danwahab. Musba, good to see you.
Very good to see you, Claire and Jumai. By the way, you ladies are looking so gorgeous as usual.
Thank you.
It's so nice you have the ministers inaugurated now. It's time for them to hit the ground running.
Well.
All right, let's get the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari has warned the newly appointed ministers not to allow issues relating to political affiliation, sectional interest, and primordial loyalties be cloud via patriotic obligation towards shifting the nation's trajectory towards sustainable growth and development. He was speaking of a swearing-in of a secretary to the government of the Federation and the record 43 newly appointed members of the Federal Executive Council.
The core objectives of this administration is to improve security, achieve diversified, inclusive economic growth, and fight corruption. I am convinced that we can build a buoyant economy that supports inclusive growth and creates broad-based prosperity for every Nigerian.
Meanwhile, here is a breakdown of the 43 new ministers and their portfolios as assigned by President Muhammadu Buhari.
The 43 ministerial list is a combination of the new and returning ministers. Dr. Uche Chukwu Oga, Minister of State, Mines and Steel Development. Mohammed Musa Bello retained his post as Minister of FCT. Godswill Akpabio, Minister of Niger Delta. Chris Ngige also returned as Minister of Labour and Employment. Sharon Ikazo, Minister of State Environment. Adamu reappointed as Minister of Education. Mariam Katugum, Minister of State, Industry, Trade and Investment. Temipre Silva, Minister of State, Petroleum. George Akume, Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs. Mustafa Baba Shehuri, Minister of State, Agriculture and Rural Development. Others are Godi Jadi Agba, Minister of State, Power. Festus Keyamo, Minister of State, Niger Delta. Ogbonnaya Onu, reappointed as Minister of Science and Technology. Osage Ehanere, Minister of Health. Clement Agba, Minister of State, Budget and National Planning. Richard Adeniyi Adebayo, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. Jeffrey Onyama, reappointed as Minister of Foreign Affairs. Ali Issa Pantami is now the Minister of Communications. Emeka Nwajuba, Minister of State, Education. Suleiman Adamu, still in charge as Minister of Water Resources. Similarly, Zainab Ahmed also reappointed as Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning. Mohammed Mahmoud, Minister of Environment. Sabo Nanono, Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. Major General Bashir Salihi Magashi, Minister of Defense. Hadi Sirika returns as Minister of Aviation. Similarly, Abubakar Malami reappointed as Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Ramatu Tijani, Minister of State, FCT. Lai Mohammed retained his position as Minister of Information and Culture. Bemisola Saraki, Minister of State, Transportation, while Babatunde Fashola returns as Minister of Works and Housing. Adeleke Mamora, Minister of State, Health. Also, Mohammed Abdullahi, Minister of State, Science and Technology. Zubair Dada, Minister of State, Foreign Affairs. Olamilekan Adegbite, Minister of Mines and Steel Development. Tayo Alasho Adura, Minister of State, Labour and Employment. Rauf Aregbeshola, now the Minister of Interior. Sunday Dare, Minister of Youth and Sports. Pauline Tallinn is appointed as Minister of Women Affairs. Rotimi Amici retained his position as Minister of Transportation. Megari Dingyadi, Minister of Police Affairs. Saleh Mamman, Minister of Power. Abubakar Aliyu, Minister of State, Works and Housing. Sadia Umar Farouk, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development.
And also, the new ministers have been speaking on their appointments, promising to deliver on their mandates.
The Senate screened the ministerial nominees, then ministers today, and we found them to be worthy of being appointed ministers, people of great capacity, experience, and loyalty.
It's a rich menu, given the fact that the ministers have been very carefully selected and deployed. Nigeria should expect quite a lot.
I am praying to the Almighty God that all Nigerians should value and know the importance of women in national development. I'm believing that God brought me to this ministry for a purpose, and He will not send me there without fully equipping me.
Some other ministers there speaking on their commitment and readiness to work. And President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the reappointment of Femi Adesina as Special Advisor of Media and Publicity and Garba Shehu as Senior Special Assistant Media and Publicity. A statement signed by Deputy Director Information Abiodun Oladunjoye reveals that the President also reappointed Laolu Akande as Senior Special Assistant Media and Publicity Office of the Vice President. President Buhari equally retained the following appointments: Tolu Ogunlusi, Special Assistant Digital and New Media; Bashir Ahmed, Personnel Assistant New Media; Loretta Onoche, Personnel Assistant Social Media; and Nazir Bashir as Personnel Assistant Visual Documentation. Following the election of a former Personal Assistant Broadcast Media, Honorable Shaban Ibrahim, as the lawmaker representing Kano Municipal Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives, the President has appointed Buhari Salau as his replacement. The statement further indicates that all appointments take effect from May 29, 2019, except that of the new entrants in the team, that's Buhari Salau, which takes immediate effect. Away from that, Wednesday witnessed a series of legal fireworks at the Presidential Election Petition Court as counsel in the PDP petition adopted their final written addresses. With this development now, when next these legal practitioners are converging as counsel in this petition on the Court of Appeal, it will be time for judgment on the matter.
As lawyers, we have concluded our professional duties. What is now left is for the court to study the evidence, read the addresses, the law, examine the authorities cited, and then deliver its judgment. And whichever way the decision of the court goes, this case will define electoral jurisprudence in this country.
On health, Nigeria is marking 3 years of zero cases of wild polio virus. This is one of the diseases Nigeria has been battling over the years with near success. Records indicate that with concerted effort from the federal government and development partners, the country is now on the verge of being declared free of the wild polio virus.
The 21st day of August 2019 marks exactly 3 years since the last case of white polio virus in Nigeria. So what it really means is that for the last 3 years, not a single child has been reported with paralysis due to white polio virus. This has never happened in the history of Nigeria. So today is really to acknowledge that milestone. But there's more work to be done.
Certification will now begin. This will be taking several months, will be completed by sometime in the spring of 2020.
All right, that's the news page on the program. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll continue in just a moment as Claire and Jumai will take you through the appointments and inauguration of the new ministers and what to expect from them after this break.
Why don't you people sell imported materials here? As beautiful as the shop is.
Auntie, buying foreign goods does not help our economy. Neither does it boost local production. And the good thing is Nigerian-made products are high quality. Really? And to make Nigeria great again, that is why I only sell made in Nigeria products. Because change begins with me.
I'm convinced. Change begins with me too. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Igboro na sharp guy, Igboro na wise guy, Igboro they code everybody, Igboro they feel funky. Igboro na smart guy, anywhere he they go he they shine eye. Igboro no they slack oh, Igboro is very connected. Igboro they judge everybody, and they know they trust anybody. Igboro they look everybody like say them is suspect. Nobody wanna trust nobody, but everybody.
Don't be like him. Free your mind with Airtel Smart Talk and enjoy calls to all networks at a flat rate of 11 kobo per second. 7 naira fee on the first call of the day applies. Dial *315# to join.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
If you're just joining us, this is Good Morning Nigeria, and of course, we're broadcasting live from Abuja. The Nigerian Stock Exchange deletes 2 financial institutions from the NSE activities. Details on Business News with Chimobi Walter Inaji.
The 2 financial institutions delisted by the Nigerian Stock Exchange are Sky Bank and Fortis Microfinance Banks. The 2 institutions were delisted pursuant to clauses of the Rule Book of the Nigerian Stock Exchange 2015. The delisting of the companies were approved by the National Council of the Exchange in line with the exchange regulatory delisting process as a result of the revocation of their operating license by their primary regulator, the Central Bank of Nigeria. Meanwhile, as the newly appointed ministers take over their portfolios and kickstart their assigned duties, some analysts have continued to react on the expectations from the core finance and economy-based ministries in finding alternative for Nigeria's infrastructural financing and the need to harmonize the achievements of the economic recovery and growth plan for the next level agenda.
We cannot rely on infrastructural financing by relying on donors' contribution. It has to be something we tackle deliberately using our own national funds or by external borrowing. So what is needed for the infrastructure sector right now, first of all, the unbundling of power works and housing, of removing power from works and housing, I think it's a good move. It shows already that it signals that the president is sensitive to what the people are saying.
And that's business news for now. I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
Right, many thanks to you, Chimobi Walter Naji, for the business package. And time now to brief you on trending news stars and quite interesting ones at that. That's a newspaper review coming up next.
And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Ateobi, is in the studio. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, Bayo.
Thank you, Jume. Good morning. Good morning, Claire.
Good morning, Bayo.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
You're beaming with smiles.
Yes.
He's enjoying the weather.
Is it the weather?
Yes,
or
I'm enjoying your company.
the trending stories? All right, let's begin, Bayo. Let's begin. Let's begin with, of course, the Daily Times. And it has a caption, an expected one. Behold, Buhari's best 12 ministers. That's how Daily Times puts that story. It will be up in just a moment. That's it. Behold, Buhari's best 12 ministers. You get to find who those are from the Daily Times perspective, if you, of course, turned to page 3. But the riders that follow, Lai, Fashola, Malami, 9 others retain portfolios. Now that gives you an idea of who the 12 best ministers are. The other rider, you must build on my achievement, says President, and consolidate and progress made in various sectors. EPC charges new ministers. But the most interesting one, I'm sure for Jume and I, will be the picture story just beneath that lead story.
Yeah.
Now you see it. All right. Those are the president's women.
Yes.
Permits me. Yes, the president's women. From minister of the new minister of the new ministry, Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, we find Abuja, Sadia Umar Farouk there. We have the Minister of State for Industry, Trade and Investment. We have Minister of State for Transport, Senator Gbemisara Saraki. Minister of State for Environment, Sharon Ikeazo. We have Minister of Finance, Budget, National Planning. That's, of course, the super minister again. We have Abuja Zainab Ahmed, Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development, Dame Pauline Talen, and Minister of State FCT, Rahmatu Tijani. All at the inauguration by President Muhammadu Buhari. And just on the other side, you find a full list of the ministers and their portfolios. So I think let's just take the stories on the inauguration.
Powerful women there.
Powerful women.
Yes, I know they are going to
affirmative action.
Yes, affirmative. But we didn't get the 45% actually. So now we come to the Nigerian pilot, where just below the masthead we have Chris Ngige saying he will resolve minimum wage logjam. And I think that is very good news to Nigerian workers. And you find that on page 6. FG approves 600 billion disbursement for power sector. Good news for Nigerian businesses and enterprises. The picture message there, Nigerian Association of Physically Challenged Persons during a protest demanding 5% employment opportunity by the Federal Civil Service Commission in Abuja, and I'm sure the new ministers will have to look into that. Next level, Buhari, 10 ministers retain portfolios, create 5 new ministries, and says we must achieve results in the next 4 years. That's talking about the check and balance of the ministries as they progress towards 2023. And he also warns against primordial interest. At the bottom plate of the Nigerian pilot, attack us and be deported back to Nigeria. South-East governors dare Nnamdi Kanu. You find that on page 7. Thousands stranded as Nigeria closes semi-border. That's on page 8. And policemen to face murder charges for extrajudicial killings. Northern governor behind new revolution movement, Revolution Now. That's on page 11. You find details of it. And Shehu Sani loses at the tribunal. You find that all on page 5. And World Bank, African Development Bank blacklist more Nigerian companies. That's on page 38. On a sad note, that.
Bayo,
well, let's start. Yes, let's start off the news of the nation. Federal Executive Council has been instituted. 43 designated ministers took oath of office to uphold the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and to also uplift their and also not allow their personal interest to overcome national interest. The President indicated that the Secretary to the Government of the Federation is to track implementation of government policies and also determine priorities. He also enjoined them to give their best and also work in harmony with permanent secretaries. With the words of today, I'm pleased to inaugurate 43 ministers who will work with me and the Vice President in the service of lifting the services of our people in Nigeria. The portfolio, which has been kept close as a secret, fell from the chest of Mr. President because he had long kept it out to his chest. There were 16 ministers of state, 27 substantive ministers. 10 of them are retaining their portfolios. There are 2 ministries separated. Power has been separated from power works and housing, and aviation from transport and aviation. 3 ministries were created: special duties and intergovernmental affairs, police affairs, as well as one long one, humanitarian affairs, disaster management, and social development. In all, there were 7 female ministers. 2 of them are substantive, 5 others are ministers of state. A former minister of state has now become a substantive minister. Some of the challenges, however, are that the police now have a ministry, police affairs. Already, police has 2 constitutional bodies, Police Service Commission and the Police Council. Now you now have the police ministry, and there's a minister for police affairs. And the Inspector General of Police, constitutionally...
Does the Police Service Commission remains?
Yes, it's a constitutional institution. But constitutionally, the Inspector General of Police reports to the Commander-in-Chief, to the President. Now you now have a minister. I don't know.
Yeah, so how does that work out? Anyway, that's part of what we shall be looking at, in the content of our discussion. Yes. All right, Bayo, let me quickly take Daily Trust now, other stories. Daily Trust front page. Nigerians set target as ministers get portfolios. Of course, this is now looking at it from the people's point of view. As Buhari retains petroleum, Fashola loses power ministry. That's the caption of the Daily Trust newspaper. The story is coming just below the nameplate there. Thousands flee as Boko Haram seizes Gubiu. It's on page 3. And Atiku versus Buhari, tribunal reserves judgment. It's on page 14. And TCN to split eyes 1.8 billion naira power control rooms. You can read of that on page 17. And you have a full picture story of the ministers and the president, of course, the whole cabinet, just right there on the front page. And trending stories at the bottom of the paper. Oyo Ita's retirement rejected by presidency. It's on page 6. Kanu Tribunal threatens relocation to Abuja on page 13, and Wadume arrested in own residence. That's according to his neighbors. You can find details of that on page 4. Jume.
And from the Blueprint newspaper, just beside the masthead, we have African liquefied natural gas to attract $103 billion in 2019. And below the masthead, no internal rivalry. Buhari warns ministers. Unbundles ministries, create new ones. We will return to January-December budget cycle. That's coming from the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. You'll find that on page 6. And on page 33, Naira weakens amidst lower oil prices. Profit taking. And then The flood sacks Maiduguri residents. That's a story that is close to my heart, and I hope they'll find succor. That's on page 15. And at inauguration, Mamman replaces Fashola as power minister. With riders, ex-Lagos governor now mans works and housing. Zainab heads finance, budget and planning. Laye Oyema Malami Ngige. Sirika retains portfolio. Sirika retains portfolio. President Steel Petroleum Minister names Sylvia Minister of State. And then the picture story there, Claire has already read it. At the bottom plate of the blueprint, Atiku server claim lie of the century. That's coming from INEC. You find that on page 15. I have faint idea of Interior Ministry. That's coming from Aregbe Sola. What Buhari told me. AGF Malami. You find that on page 5. Southwest governors sponsoring revolution now in the north. That's coming from the CNGs. So you find that on page 7. Buhari reappoints Adeshino. Shehu Akonde orders. You find that on page 5. I will be confrontational. New sports minister tells NFF others. And from the leadership newspaper, just below the masthead, we have FG to inject 600 billion into power sector. That's coming from the TCN. Who may declare Africa polio? WHO may declare Africa polio free in 2020. You find that on page 13. And high expectations as usual as ministers assume office, unveil agenda. PMB restructures ministries, and you see the pictures of our ministers there. Extrajudicial killing, army hands over dismissed personnel to police. That's on page 35. And at the very bottom of the leadership newspaper, governors meet over NIFU guidelines. That's coming from the SDGs. NAS will get 2020 budget in September. That's coming from the presidency on page 2. NSE deletes Skybank 40s. MFB, you find that on page 27. Cargoes trapped as FG closes Seme Idiroku borders. That's on the leadership newspaper. Bye.
Well, let's start with the good news about Nigeria. Nigeria yesterday marked 3 years without a case of wild polio. Now, if we are able to keep this status for the next 6 months, then Nigeria will have been certified to be polio-free. And that is a very serious landmark for us to attain. Faisal Shuaibu of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency said that this will be a historical milestone. All things being equal, a certification committee will submit Nigeria's data on polio surveillance by March 2020, and that will go a long way to join the African regional certification for which the World Health Organization will now declare the continent of Africa polio-free.
Just before you go, most people might not really appreciate the fact that, we have been 3 months, without, recording a single case. So could you just give us a little about the import of that?
Not 3 months, 3 years.
Sorry, 3 years.
3 years.
3 years.
The import of that is that we were close to that. Nigeria, from 2014, for a period of 2 years, never had any polio. But unfortunately, one polio case was discovered, I think, in Mongono. Because of the insurgency, the inoculation and vaccination could not continue. And one case was discovered, and therefore, we had to begin again. So from 21st of August of 2014, we began again. And for 3 years now, we have been able to keep a clean slate. If we succeed by March, in another 6 months, then we will have met the 4-year criteria required by the World Health Organization. And Nigeria will forever and ever be polio-free.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So we keep our fingers crossed.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, there was this story that you read about Wadumi.
Yes.
And some accounts have been emerged about how the kidnap kingpin was actually arrested. This was published in the Daily Trust. Police had been on his trail since 6th of August. He was followed up to a ghetto in the suburbs of Gezawa in Kano. A witness named Musa Idris says that Hamisu Bala, as that is his original name, his nickname is What Do You Mean, was trying to buy some goods at the plaza. 3 security men in plain clothes were outside the plaza other 3 followed him into the plaza pretending to be customers. Eventually, they picked him up, arrested him, and took him to a waiting car. A man said to be in front of him, to be a front for him from Ibi, was also trailed to Abuja. He was found to have withdrawn huge sums of money and was about to take it to him in Kano when he was also apprehended. He was said to have withdrawn a lot of money, and the house for which he was arrested is speculated to belong to him, because this front is responsible for buying for him houses all over the Federation, even including Abuja, and as well as vehicles and other items.
That was very daring of him.
They have been actually picking almost all his network of criminals.
We must give thumbs ups to police for that. But let's quickly look at the editorial. And today's editorial is taken from what paper now?
The Punch, I think.
The Punch, really. The Punch. And it's speaking to the issue of agriculture. And the title is Reviving Agriculture Requires Greater Urgency. And fortunately, we've got a new Minister of Agriculture in the person of Sabo Nanono from Kano State. Nanono from Kano State. And let's look at a bit of what the editorial is talking about. Now, it said, seemingly radical moves made recently to stimulate farming signpost both the federal government's awareness of the urgency for food security and also lack of coherence and coordination in its diverse initiatives. But here is the editorial. It says the Nigeria agribusiness investment activity promoted by the U.S. Agency for International Development in partnership with the FG will work with lenders to attract investments in farming. Now, this is laudable and, of course, similar project, but the government needs, however, to muster greater sense of urgency and pursue much more ambitious integrated program to achieve that. Bayo.
Yes, the editorial is happening on two perspectives. First is the Nigeria agricultural investment activity, which is backed by a loan support by United States with $300 million. And the editorial is saying that it should emphasize on medium and small scale enterprises, and that will go a long way to boost agriculture. The other radical initiative referred to is the pronouncement by the president that the foreign exchange should not be made available for importation of food into the country. But however, the editorial is cautioning that for the agricultural revolution, so to say, to succeed, there must be a lot of caution, and it's advising that there should be a check to ensure that agricultural extension services are provided. There should also be checked to ensure that poor execution is eliminated. There should be no intrusion of politics into this agricultural period. And the editorial is worried about the quality too, in the sense that we need to provide storage facilities for excess grains and excess crop production, so as to prevent rotten, some of them getting rotten, and also to ensure that they are preserved. There must be a means also to serve as a buffer for agriculturalists, and he says also stressing that state governments must take full advantage of this, because the large population of the unemployed are in the states, and therefore they should take advantage of this agricultural revolution to boost employment and also boost food production and occasion food sufficiency in Nigeria.
All right, Bayo, thank you. And thank you for not allowing me to use my red card.
I saw a black pen.
Don't worry, I'm going to be coming with my red card. Or was it yellow I was using?
Yes.
It was yellow?
It was orange.
Or blue. All right, Bayo, thank you. We'll see you again tomorrow.
All right.
All right. This is Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you for watching. We are still right here, but we'll be right back.